We good to go, Yuri?
You are live on Facebook.
Wonderful. Good evening, everybody. My name is Supervisor Chris Lopez. I'm going to open tonight with some comments in Spanish just to make sure that our attendees get the full breadth of the information we're providing tonight. So I'm sharing information about the availability of interpretation. Just bear with me 1 second. Gracias a todos que están participando esta noche. Si necesita interpretación, por favor, si van al bajo de la pantalla, hay un icono que se parece a un globo. Si le haces clic en ese globo, tiene la oportunidad de escuchar esta junta en español, y esto estamos ofreciendo con la ayuda de un intérprete. Por favor, usan ese servicio si lo necesitan. All right, so that being handled, welcome everybody. My name is Supervisor Chris Lopez. I am the chair of the Monterey County Board of Supervisors, and I am here tonight just to help bring more quality information to the community. I want to give a huge thank you to Supervisor Mary Adams and her office for spearheading the coordination of this, specifically Yuri Anderson and Sarah Hardgrave, who've done some incredible work behind the scenes to get us to this point. I also want to recognize Congressman Jimmy Panetta, who's with us this evening. The Congressman has been such a strong advocate for us through these incredible crises that we face this year, from the pandemic to the fires, making sure that our communities get the resources we need to get us through these crises, and then now that we're on the backside, to make sure that we get those resources we need to recover. There's a lot of information that's going to be provided tonight, and I know I'm standing between you and that critical information, and so I'm going to move us on here and turn the show over to Supervisor Mary Adams, who's going to introduce the rest of our panel. But thank you, Supervisor Adams, for your leadership on this, and thank you for the invitation to help participate and share this critical information with our communities.
Thank you so much, Chris. You're always so very generous with the thanks, and I'm so thankful that we have you as our board chair this year, taking care of a lot of things that really you're handling very well. Thank you all for joining us this evening. I'm very happy that you're able to be with us, especially under these sort of dire circumstances. But my hope is that what you'll find from the information provided to you, it will make the future look a little bit brighter. This evening, I'd like to just review the agenda, and I'll let you know what we're going to have happen this evening. I'm very thankful that we have Congressman Jimmy Panetta with us, who is going to moderate a discussion on the federal support programs for the fire recovery process. They'll include an update on the EPA's Phase 1 debris removal, give an overview of the Watershed Emergency Response Team report, and everybody refers to that as the WERT. They're good on acronyms here. And he'll do the report on the Carmel and River fires and the county's activities in response to the report findings. We'll get a preview of the Dolan fire analysis that was just released today. We'll provide some additional resources that are available for residents and property owners, and then we'll leave time for your questions. Now, this is the second town hall that we're having during the recovery process, and we're going to continue to hold them as needed. We may not have all of the answers now, but hearing your questions will help guide us into the next town hall that we have. We'll be using the Q&A function to take questions from attendees, and attendees who have joined via Zoom online will find the Q&A at the bottom of their screen. Questions can be entered at any time during the presentation, but we'll be holding all of the answers until after the panelists have had a chance to comment. Questions may be written in English or in Spanish. And for attendees watching via the live Facebook broadcast on my page, you can type your questions into the comment section there, and my staff will add them into the Q&A on Zoom. For attendees who join via telephone, you can press *9 to raise your hand to indicate you have a question that you'd like during the Q&A period. We anticipate having more questions than we're going to have the time to be able to answer. And if you don't get to ask your question or it isn't answered before we adjourn at 7 p.m. promptly, please email your question to my office, to Supervisor Adams's office, or you can also send them to Supervisor Lopez's office, and we'll do follow-up for you from there. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for viewing later if you're not able to stay for the entire time. It will be available on the Monterey County YouTube channel or on my Facebook page. And now I'm very delighted to ask Congressman Panetta to moderate the first portion of this agenda on the debris removal and cleanup federal programs related to the fire recovery process. We have a hard stop at 6 p.m. For the next portion of the meeting tonight. So please take it away, Congressman Panetta, and thanks for being with us.
You bet. You bet. Thank you to Supervisor Adams and, of course, Supervisor Lopez. It's great to be with you. I think we're probably going to say this each time we're on these Zoom calls. Would love to be with you in person. Would love to be with everybody here on this call in person. But this is what we got to do now and basically adapt and keep on going forward. And I think that's kind of been the nature of how we've acted definitely this past summer with, yes, what we've heard and is probably true, these unprecedented and unpredictable times. But we really appreciate your Supervisor Adams and your Supervisor Lopez and the rest of the supervisors, your leadership when it comes to these important issues that really are affecting us. I mean, it's kind of, I've been saying this a lot lately, but now more than ever, government needs to work for people. I just can't stress that enough. There's so much unpredictability that we need our government and our government employees to actually lean in on these issues and do what they do best. And that's provide the services of our government. And we're seeing that. And that's what we're going to hear about tonight as to how we better work those services so that we can provide them to the people here in Monterey County. I think, as some of you know, I call myself a double evacuee, and that I too was evacuated, like many people on this house, many people on this call from my house here in Carmel Valley due to the Carmel fire coming up over this hill I'm looking at right here. And then went to another house here in the village, and that got evacuated a few days later. But unlike a few people on this call, though, we were fortunate to have our house to come home to. And that's why, when wildfires began threatening in August, our office made sure that we could immediately engage with OES up there in Sacramento, with FEMA, and as well as with the White House to make sure that we were able to secure the major disaster declaration. And we were able to do that, fortunately, and we were glad that we did that, because basically that then opens up critical FEMA and SBA assistance for individuals and our county. Now, as we've seen and as we know, that in order to get that assistance, sometimes there's some pretty small hoops we got to get through. And so that's why tonight I think it's great that we're going to be hearing from people who represent our government and our agencies, including FEMA and SBA and EPA and USDA, about the federal services and the assistance available to help our communities recover. And I also want to stress that my office is available to assist with any questions whatsoever regarding federal assistance. If anyone on this call or anyone needs help accessing the federal programs or the federal bureaucracies, please, please, please call my office. Like I said, now more than ever, it's our responsibility in government to make it work for the people who need it the most. That's our goal, and I think our goal tonight is to make sure that with all of our guests, to show how they are working hard to make government working for you, the people here in Monterey County. So I just see a number of people popping up. Let me just go through a couple of quick introductions, as I've been told I got to do. First of all, we got Rusty Harris Bishop with the Environmental Protection Agency. We have Katrina Palomar with Cal OES. We got John Catching with Cal OES. Kelsey Scanlon from Monterey County OES. We got Rick Encarnacion from Monterey County Environmental Health. Maria Ferdin of Monterey County Environmental Health. Brian Azevedo from Monterey County Environmental Health. Randy McMurray, Monterey County Environmental Health. Kevin Wynn of the Small Business Administration. Desi Ramirez, Natural Resources Conservation Service. And last but not least, Aaron Hills of FEMA. So thank you everybody for being here, being able to answer hopefully what won't be too tough of questions, but hopefully we'll be able to provide answers upon which the people who are listening can get information to help them in their recovery efforts. Now, the first line of questioning I want to get at, it's going to be Rusty Harris Bishop of the EPA. I'm going to pick on you for this first line of questioning. Talk to us about phase one when it comes to debris removal and property cleanup? And what is the role of the EPA? I've gotten a few calls. I know Supervisor Adams has gotten a few calls about how the EPA can get out here and make some sort of determination. What exactly has to happen with the EPA? Please, Rusty.
All right. Thank you, Congressman. I'm actually going to deflect that to our Deputy Incident Commander for EPA, Tara Fitzgerald. She's going to be able to talk about the phase one. So Tara.
Great, and sorry, Tara, for not introducing you.
No worries. Good evening, everyone. So the USDA is conducting phase one household hazardous waste removal activities, and we're beginning in Monterey this week. So quick overview of what household hazardous waste removal is. That's essentially removing things like paints, cleaners, solvents, oils, batteries, herbicides, pesticides, things that we commonly have in our homes, but that can't simply be disposed of in the regular trash. And that's the first part of removing things from the residences. And so the EPA, US EPA is getting started. We've actually set up our staging area off of Carmel Valley Road today, and we've had reconnaissance teams in the footprint of the Carmel fire starting today, and we will have actual household hazardous waste removal being conducted beginning Friday, and we're beginning in Monterey County in the footprint of the Carmel fire.
Okay, and when you say Carmel Valley Road, where are you guys staged?
We are off Carmel Valley Road. I don't believe there's a cross street off it, but essentially it's a kind of a turnoff area. Yeah, it's a kind of a turnoff area as you go in towards, I believe, Cashagua.
Okay, exactly.
Urana Ranch.
Got it. Thank you, Mary. Thank you very much. Okay. So how exactly does this process work, Tara? Are they actually going in and going into each site, or did they already have it coordinated as to which sites they have to go to? Explain a little bit about the process.
Right. So essentially, the way the sites are determined are from CAL FIRE information based on residential structures that are damaged or destroyed. And so we've obtained that, the US EPA has obtained that information. And once we do that, we associate the parcels that are associated with those structures, and we go to every residential structure. And that's one of the reasons why we're sending reconnaissance teams out. Oftentimes, obviously, there are a lot of locked gates and access issues. This is a fairly difficult places to get to. So we are trying to ensure that we can send our teams, which have larger trucks in order to remove the waste. So that's why we get our recon teams out early. And then we'll be sending the household hazardous waste teams in, and they'll go to every parcel that's been identified as having a damaged structure on it. And I should point out that we have a hotline to call, and I can actually probably provide that information in the chat function for residents if they'd like to provide the EPA any information about potentially a locked gate, if they'd like us to come to their property, or any sort of particular types of hazards that they may have identified on their property, like pesticides in a certain area, et cetera. So we're happy to get that information and be able to respond to that.
So EPA you're not necessarily working with the property owners. You're getting this information from CAL FIRE and then identifying the certain properties, and then you're just going to go out there. Is that correct? And start doing the work?
That is correct. So we have a blanket permission to begin the work from the governor of the state of California. And so we, unless, requested not to, we do show up to each residential parcel and conduct the HHW removal.
Okay. And how long do you think this will take, at least in looking at the Carmel fire?
So in looking at the Carmel fire, I of course, I'm always going to hesitate to give an exact date. We'd really like to have everything completed by mid-November. I'd really like to see that happen earlier. I'm optimistic, but I think, you know, taking a realistic look, we'd like to be completed by mid-November in both the Carmel and River fires.
And how will people know their properties have been cleaned up by EPA?
So there are a couple ways you can do it. One, we're actually just going to put a stake with a sign that will show that it'll say phase 1 complete, and have some additional information about contacting Monterey County on it. And then we also have what we call a story map, but it's basically a web page that you can go to and you can type your address into it, and you can, number one, see that your residence has been identified as a site that we need to actually go to. And once it's been identified, you can see its status, essentially. Have we visited it and is it complete? So that would be another way. And I'll actually throw that website in the chat as well.
Great. Yeah, definitely put your information so people can contact the EPA in the chat. I'd appreciate that.
Congressman Panetta?
Yes, Kelsey.
Hi. If I might add some more information real quick about the website.
Awesome.
So if the public goes to our recovery webpage and you click on hazardous material and debris removal, it will take you to the hotline phone number that the EPA is managing. They can also text MC Fires 2020 to 888-777. That's how we'll be sending up daily text message updates about where the EPA will be working. And then if you click on phase 1 progress maps, it will take you to the EPA story map where you can see the weekly progress status of your property as well.
That is outstanding. Great. Good, good, good. So definitely Monterey County is working very closely with EPA, apparently, correct?
That is correct.
Yes, great. So I'll leave, I guess that website will be great to direct everyone to whether or not they have any questions for the hotline or the map.
Outstanding. Good, good, good. Thank you. Thank you. I guess, Kelsey, you can stay on as I'm going to pivot over to Cal OES and Monterey County OES at this point, focusing on Kelsey and Katrina and John Catching just to get you ready. How can residents ensure that their properties are registered for federal cleanup services? Is it this website right here?
Yes, that's correct. So if you are living in an area that is in close proximity to the Carmel fire, River fire, or Dolan fire, and or your home experienced property damage, and you're seeing that your neighbors, all of their debris is being picked up, but yours is not, you should call the EPA at that 415 number to make sure that you're on their list. And if you can't get a hold of them, you can call the RMA, specifically Frida Escobar, or you can call me. And I'll leave my phone number in the chat as well.
Outstanding. All right, kind of pivoting forward, talk to me about phase 2 and what is that and when will that begin?
Thank you, Congressman. So this is John Catching from Cal OES. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to Monterey County tonight. And for the phase 2 operations, we'll be having a team out there. It will be run by our branch director, who will be Kendra Boyer, and she will be handling all aspects of debris removal coordination from Cal OES's perspective for that state program. Unfortunately, we have many fires going on in the state right now, so she was unable to join us. So I brought in one of our other branch directors and incident commanders, Cole Glenwright, to discuss the aspects of phase 2.
Great. Go for it, Cole.
Sure. So as John mentioned, the state and federal government are still working closely to scope precisely what phase 2 will consist of. The decisions we make in this process include scope of the program, exactly what qualifies for federal debris removal assistance. So those conversations are progressing very quickly. We did get some interim communication from FEMA today, signaling that there will be a program, and we're in close conversation tonight and tomorrow, scoping out some of the finer details there. Some key points that your community should be aware of at this point, though, when we do begin phase 2 operations and sign up for that begins, That is an opt-in program. So by law, you have to submit a right of entry form to be enrolled in those programs, which is different than phase one. So it's important that folks stay tuned in. Monterey County has a great system online, as they should, for making sure you're aware of updates on this. But it's very, very important people understand that there will be action required on their part to enroll in that. And to that end, it's important people start considering at this point if that's a program they want to go into. One step in that process is reviewing your insurance policy. If you haven't looked at that, I'm sure most folks at this stage in the recovery probably have been in contact with their insurance. But if you haven't asked specifically about how much coverage you have for structural debris removal on your property, that's an important question to start looking at. Start contemplating if you would want to, if you choose to sign up for a public program when one's announced, because once the right of entry permit is rolled out and the county begins collecting those, you're going to want to submit that as quickly as possible so that the program can get essentially a critical mass of parcels to start on. We can mobilize a contractor to the area and we can start right away. What we wouldn't want to see happen is us be ready to start a program, but folks, not have signed up in a quantity that we could deploy a contractor. So it's important that we keep that communication going and that folks think about that and try and get ready to make a decision so that when it's rolled out, we can move quickly on it. But again, to hit the highlights, phase two is on the horizon here. Our Cal OES leadership and FEMA Region 9, we have a really wonderful partnership with FEMA Region 9. Unfortunately, in California, we've done this fire cleanup business quite a bit. My team was the one up in Paradise, California in Butte County. In fact, we're still engaged here on some longer term recovery efforts, removing somewhere in the range of 100,000 hazard trees that might fall on roads. FEMA's covering the costs for that. So we have a really great relationship with FEMA that turns on really extensive cleanup programs. So we're working hard to make sure that what we scope and deliver here is precisely what's needed. We don't want to, we want to measure twice, cut once, to say, right? We want to develop a program that really fits the need here and not rush to there and have to change, go back on anything with you. So I'm confident that's coming quickly here and it'll be a program that meets your needs.
Great. Thank you, Cole. And let me just echo what you said about the relationship between Cal OES and FEMA. I experienced that personally. Monterey County experienced that personally when that Saturday that I had to evacuate from the second time, received notice that Santa Cruz County got the major disaster declaration, but Monterey County did not. I immediately got on the phone and called Director Ghilarducci, called Bob Fenton, called the White House, and by Monday, Monterey County was included in that. So thanks to the efforts for Director Ghilarducci, please pass along how much I appreciate his hard work, especially now, and his support for us here on the Central Coast. So thank you. On the other aspect, let me move to FEMA at this point. And I know, Aaron, you're here to talk about FEMA, and I want to hit on the Individual Assistance Program. Can you give us a quick overview, Aaron, of what that Individual Assistance Program entails and how we deal with it?
Sure. So the Individual Assistance Program, we call it the Individual and Household Program, and it breaks down into quite a few brackets of assistance. The primary one would be housing, and that encompasses quite a few different avenues. You have temporary housing, depending on how bad damages were, you could have repair or replacement. And then you go into the other needs. So you have coverage for your personal property, your transportation vehicles, childcare costs. There's quite a few things that we can assist with.
Great. And are there any eligibility requirements to qualify for it?
Yes, there definitely are. So for anything that has to do with repair or replacement to the home, to the structure itself, we would need to have some sort of proof of ownership as well as occupancy at the time of the incident.
Got it. Now we're hearing this, and we're getting some mixed messages. Talk to us about the deadline to register for FEMA assistance, and why is it important for residents to register with FEMA before that deadline?
So we actually just got approval to extend the registration period through November 21st. So that gives an additional 30 days. And we really recommend that you register prior to that deadline because all the gates are open at this time, right? So you register now and your application, your registration gets processed immediately. So if there is anything holding you back as far as eligibility, we would be able to troubleshoot that faster. Whereas if you go after the deadline, you're gonna have to jump through a few more hoops to get your registration to process.
Understood. And lastly, Aaron, where can residents go to begin the process to register for FEMA and apply for assistance?
So the easiest way, especially right now with COVID restrictions, we have the hotline, the helpline, FEMA helpline. That's, I can leave that also in the chat. It's 1-800-621-FEMA, 3362. And that's all day, every day. A helpline technician can get you registered in just a few moments, or you can visit the website, fema.gov, and you can register yourself and create an online account to keep tabs on everything.
Great, you got this down. Thanks, Aaron. Moving on to Cal OES, I got some questions for you. Back at you again, sorry about that. Give us an overview of the available public assistance programs, could you?
Sure thing, Congressman. So for public assistance, it's typically going to be for recovery, emergency protective measures, and debris removal associated with government agencies, which could be the county or any city jurisdiction, special government districts, school districts, certain private nonprofits. Those entities that have a public aspect to what they do are eligible for a reimbursement program through public assistance. So if they had facilities that were damaged, if they had to take those emergency protective measures that qualify for FEMA reimbursement, they would come through, submit an application, and bring those costs in and be able to have them reviewed, work with Cal OES, try to develop that project out, and then FEMA, when they come in, the current cost share is 75% of the total cost that they'll provide. So the first step in that process is making sure that we get a request for public assistance in from anyone who thinks that they meet one of those criteria as an eligible applicant. We'll bring them in and start getting them reviewed, and then we can review projects and other items for further eligibility. So that process is done through FEMA's grants portal system. The submission of that, many of these agencies have already done so because of COVID and taken part in that. But if they have not, they can reach back out to Cal OES. We're always here to assist. We have a group inbox that works to assist our public assistance applicants, and that is disaster recovery, all one word, at caloes.ca.gov. It's monitored most days. We try to get our responses out as quickly as possible, but even if you have questions about your possible eligibility, what work eligibility may be, that'll get to the right people so we can quickly get an answer back out to possible applicants. The one group that it's not for is private for-profit business. So those entities typically have to go back through Small Business Administration or somebody else, but public entities can come through public assistance.
Gotcha. John, can you or Aaron provide information on that grants portal, that FEMA grants portal as well, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's only for public assistance, not for individual assistance. So Aaron, I think, has given most of the contact information there, but I will include in the chat the same information for the public assistance grants portal.
And just to let you know, myself and a few other members from Northern California introduced legislation in the middle of the fires to expand that 75-25 FEMA trade-off to make it 90-10 as well, making sure FEMA pays a little bit more is what we're hoping for.
Fantastic.
So to let you know. Last set of questions I got coming up here before Mary gives me the hook. Kevin Wynn, SBA, talk to us about an overview of disaster assistance programs through the SBA.
Thanks, Congressman. And what they do is after they register with FEMA, they're brought over to the SBA. They can fill out an application, and we can offer homeowners for their primary residence up to $200,000 to repair, replace it. For renters and homeowners, up to $40,000 for personal property. Business owners in the communities can get up to $2 million to repair, replace their physical damage of their small business. And Congressman, we also offer those economic injury disaster loans. And those are for businesses that didn't have any physical damage, but are starting to see that decrease in revenue. They can come to SBA as well, 800-659-2955. Go ahead and apply with us. And for the 10 counties that have been approved thus far.
Kevin, let me slow you down. So you just said something very important. So if I'm a business, and although my business did not get damaged by the fire, but I'm starting to lose business because of the fire, I can then go to the SBA.
Yes, and you can also get a loan up to $2 million at a 3% rate with terms up to 30 years. We also offer, Congressman, a 5-month deferral on these loans as well. Also for homeowners and renters, the 5-month deferral. 1.1% rate for the homeowners and renters makes recovery very affordable. Register with FEMA, come over to SBA, fill out that application, go to www.sba.gov/disaster. Very simple application. And they also offer these economic injury disaster loans, Congressman, to the contiguous counties of Monterey, because we recognize that some of those contiguous counties do business within the county of Monterey. So it's there for both contiguous and the primary counties that have been declared for the wildfire declaration.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And just quickly, if you could, Kevin, the relationship between SBA and FEMA, how does that come into play? And is there anything you can't get one or the other? Can you get both? What's going on there?
The first thing you always do is you register with FEMA, and FEMA will then probably refer you over to SBA. We work very closely with each other. Our primary goal, Congressman, is to get these applicants and survivors back on the road to recovery in all 10 counties, especially Monterey, and it's SBA's goal to get the businesses, stabilize the taxes in those businesses, keep those employees employed, and get the community on the road to recovery. FEMA and SBA and Cal OES, an excellent team to help these businesses and communities get back up and running.
Outstanding. Thanks, Kevin. And once again, thank you, Supervisor Adams and Supervisor Lopez, for allowing me to be a part of this very, very informative discussion tonight. And once again, if anybody has any sort of issues with these federal bureaucracies, know that we'll be there to help you out and to make sure that they continue to do the good work that they have been doing and will continue to do. My number, 831-424-2229. Feel free to call my office. More than happy to be there to make sure government works for you. Once again, thank you, Supervisor Adams. Turning it back to you.
Thank you so much, Congressman Panetta. Honestly, he just did a beautiful job. But the best news that I heard of all of that was the change in FEMA to the 90-10. That is fantastic. That's
Not yet.
really
Not
great
yet.
news.
We put in legislation. Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Okay. Well, I will certainly be on your side rooting for
Thank
it
you.
without question.
Yep.
Again, thank you so much. And thank you for the leadership that you've shown throughout this entire situation. I really appreciate your participation with us tonight as well. Thank you so much. So now I'd like the second group of panelists to turn on their videos, and I would like the first group to turn off their videos. And then as we go through the panelists, I think that we'll just have them self-introduce so that we can go ahead and get started. What I'm going to ask the panelists to provide is an overview of the Watershed Emergency Response Team report, and ask if they can share a little bit more about these things. These are the items we want to talk about. What is the Watershed Emergency Response Team report? Who prepared it? How should it be used? And what individual evaluations should property owners consider doing? So I think what we'll do is start by asking our panelists whether or not they're going to be able to respond to those questions. So we have, I think, maybe Kelsey, Chief DeTullio, Tim Montgomery, Brian Garcia, and Tom Moss might be prepared to answer some of these questions, or they might be able to answer the upcoming questions. Yeah, Kelsey. So
sorry, I thought you were finished.
Okay, that's okay. What's the word?
Okay, so before we get started, I just wanted to share my screen once again. This is still the Monterey County Recovery webpage, so www.co.monterey.ca.us/recovery. You come down here to the Watershed Protection DUBOP, that's a technical term. You can see all the information about the WIRT report and the BEAR report that will come out later. It has information on the technicalities of post-fire flooding hazards and flash flooding and debris removal or debris flows, and ultimately how to prepare for those upcoming winter storms. And there's a bunch of good stuff on here that I'll also be pointing to later on. But first and foremost, I will hand it over to Chief DiTullio to talk about what the WERT report is.
Sure, I'll go ahead and give you a brief overview of the WERT. It's also known as, well, it is the Watershed Emergency Response Team Report, also known as the WERT. This is a rapid evaluation of post-fire geologic and hydrologic hazards to life safety and property, also known as values at risk, for the public and private lands affected by the fires. It was put together by a team of foresters and geologic engineers from CAL FIRE and the California Geologic Survey. These folks have an expertise in geology, civil engineering, hydrology, forestry, GIS, among other things. And the WERT should be used to help determine preliminary protective measures and communicate findings to agencies and affected parties for use in planning and mitigation.
So to piggyback on what Chief DiTullio had just mentioned, the values at risk have been mapped here, and you can find them on the webpage. And the most important note that I'd like to leave people with is that you should toggle between the different layers, and each one has a different type of data set. So this neon green, yellow, red, this is the soil burn severity layers. So the red means it burned really hot in that area, yellow meaning moderate, and tealish to green being low. And so ultimately red is bad, green is good, just based on looking at this. If you select the USGS basin probability estimates, the description is over here on the left, but ultimately it talks about likelihood and volume of drainage in that area. So red bad, yellow good. And then finally, based on that, you can look at what we call the values at risk. And these are the initial points that the CAL FIRE team had identified as at risk and to what degree that asset is at risk. So the little blue dots are infrastructure. So if you click on it, it'll tell you what the asset is, where it's located, what it might experience in the winter, and the potential threat to life and property. The little gray dots with the figure and little like hut is our homes or structures on private property. And again, you'll find the same information located. And homeowners should specifically look at the recommended emergency protective measures that are recommended by CAL FIRE. And then these little like orangish, yellowish, mustard colored dots are like miscellaneous items essentially, but it's the same type of data. And so we highly recommend that if you live in or near the burn scar, if you can see the burn scar, you should come on here and take a look at the risks surrounding your home or your property, and really try to suss out what it's trying to tell you. And then finally, if you live in or near the burn scar, you should contact NRCS to have them come out and do a free assessment of your property and the risk the risk of debris flows and flash flooding this coming winter. And so I had initially sent out a text message to have you guys call NRCS directly, and she'll talk about what services they provide in a couple of minutes, but she was so inundated with phone calls, we had to set up a kind of a secondary system. So you can request a property assessment by coming onto the watershed page and submitting your information here, which our office will collect and give to NRCS, or you can call us directly, aka me directly, anytime Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. To schedule an assessment. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Tom Moss and Brian Garcia to talk about how they're utilizing this report to guide their mitigation and response actions. But before I do that, I just want to remind everyone that the WERT and BEAR reports are not the end-all be-all. They're very much a jumping off point to help guide us in the right direction for assessing risk and developing strategies to mitigate the upcoming winter storm risks, as well as to respond to. So one of the things our office is doing is developing a contingency debris flow plan in the event that there is significant rain in a short period of time. And we will be putting up a version of that on this webpage once it's been finalized, with more information to come at future town hall meetings on how you can prepare for the debris flows. But I highly recommend that you come down here and click on the Learn How to Prepare for Post-Fire Storms, Flooding, and Debris Flows, and also register for emergency alerts. If you just want information this upcoming winter, you can text MC Winter to 888-777. If you want to be prepared to the best extent possible, we highly recommend that you register all of your contact information with Alert Monterey County. So with that, I will hand it over to Tom Moss.
Okay, thanks, Kelsey. So how do we use this report for future planning? And I think that's a little bit further on the agenda, but we'll talk a little bit more about the Emergency Watershed Protection Program and the grant funds that are available, or federal funds that are available to actually install temporary protective measures for structures. So that's how I'll use the report. That's my role in this, and I think we'll talk about that a little bit more on the agenda. Randy Issue's on the line if he wants to talk a little bit about the county's, the measures that we're taking on the public works system. That would be better addressed by Randy.
Okay, so maybe what we could talk about then is with the county staff, let me just go back a little bit and talk about the upcoming winter storms. And I think Peter Quick is available. He might be able to mention that. And then we'll go back to Kelsey and talk about the emergency debris flow plan. But Peter, could you give us just a quick overview of what you're seeing as far as the upcoming winter storms are?
Yeah, Supervisor Adams, I think you meant Brian Garcia with the National Weather Service.
Oh, I bet I did mean that. Thank you.
It's all right, no worries.
What's Peter Quick doing knowing all the weather stories?
So yeah, what Kelsey was talking about is very imperative. It's about preparation now ahead of anything that's going to come in, because as we all know in Monterey County, and our office covers from Napa, Sonoma, all the way down to Monterey, San Benito counties, but we are located here in Monterey, the city of Monterey. So we have people who were evacuated during the Carmel fire. We understand the pain, we understand the suffering. So it's about being prepared now, because it's going to rain. It might not rain this weekend, but the storms will come and we will have issues from flooding. So what we're looking at this winter is we are currently under a La Nina advisory, which technically favors a storm track up in the Pacific Northwest. However, as we get deeper into winter, more towards February timeframe, which is our typical wet month, that storm track is projected to slip southward. So we'll come out of La Nina and go into a neutral phase. So as we get towards that time, it's imperative that you already have a plan in place, that you've already practiced your plan, that you've already signed up for the Monterey County alerts, and that you are ready to go. So it's all about preparedness. No matter what I say, what Lee Solomon or Dan Cianca on TV say, it's all about being prepared personally for any event that could occur, whether it's floods, earthquakes, tsunami, whatever the case may be. So whatever the winter may bring, be prepared now.
Thank you. Couldn't think of better advice. Do you want to talk about the emergency debris flow plan, Kelsey?
Yeah, so I'll just touch on it briefly because it's still in draft form. But we work with a variety of different partners, specifically the National Weather Service, the Monterey County Water Resources Agency, the Resource Management Agency, the Public Information Officer, the Sheriff's Office, and the local fire protection districts to make sure that we have all the information we need in the event of a debris flow. And so that includes what we call precipitation thresholds. So the amount of rain that occurs in a specific amount of time will likely result in this type of activity, such as a debris flow. And so we're still identifying those precipitation thresholds with the National Weather Service. that we will likely distribute so that the communities can watch the rain with us, and that they can participate and know when it's time to protect themselves. The other thing that it includes is our thresholds for emergency notification. So if we see that there's going to be a flash flood advisory, these are the types of channels that we send out the information on. If we start seeing debris flows, these are the types of channels that we send emergency notifications out on. So we really need people to sign up for emergency alerts, because that's ultimately how we'll be notifying you of debris and flash floods in your area. Brian really hit on the topic that if we tell you to evacuate, please do so. It is typically not a friendly suggestion, but very much a request, if not a demand, for the safety of your life and the safety of your property. So please adhere to the local law enforcement and fire professionals if they ask you to leave your home. If you choose to stay and your home is not immediately impacted by a debris flow or flash flooding, we recommend that you be prepared for more than 3 days. On average, we tell people to be prepared for 72 hours, but if you live in an area that is hard to get to, such as Kashawa, it will be very difficult for us to get there in a timely manner. So you should be prepared to shelter in place for a significant period of time. To that end, we do look at what resources we should be preparing for the winter, such as evacuation centers, evacuation routes, commodity points of distribution, where people can access all of those resources, and what resources we have at the county level to essentially fight a flood or debris flow. And then if they are to occur, how we can quickly remove the debris and get people back to their homes as safely as possible. So all of those types of different information and resources that will be listed in our contingency debris flow plan.
Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you so much. Now I'd like to go to Randy Ishii, and maybe you could tell us about the county roads and facilities, the mitigation plans that are based on the work.
Thank you, Supervisor Adams. I'll go off the springboard of which Tom Moss from the Environmental Services Branch had teed up for myself when it comes to the work report and its importance. The work report not only informs of the issues on private property, but also the potential impacts onto public infrastructure, such as the roads, such as the culverts, such as the bridges, and issues with uphill or upland properties as well. I apologize for not having a PowerPoint presentation for the public for tonight. At this juncture, I'm able to describe in words what some of the proactive steps the county is taking, both before we receive the work report and now that we have the work report, and some future actions that we're also looking into with our partner agencies. I'll speak first about the Carmel fire. I imagine many constituents have seen both my staff and construction contractors actively at work out there. By way of a brief overview of the activity that is occurring there, on Kashawa Road, which was the county road that was significantly affected by the Carmel fire, as well as so many people whose homes were up there in Sky Ranch and other places up on in the Kashawa Road or Kashawa Road served areas. We, the county, have first done immediate emergency protective measures and debris removal and permanent repairs like the guardrail replacement for traffic safety. In the upcoming week, the week of October the 12th, and probably over the course of the next 1.5 to 2 months, foreseeably, our contractor will be out there doing a combination of repair and replacement of damaged culverts that were impacted by the heat of the fire, as well as some emergency protective measures for the inlets of those pipes. At the same time, there are some locations where there are some steep slopes that we have already placed concrete K-rail, i.e. barriers along, to serve as energy diffusers and divert that slide material away from the roadway, causing a secondary slide or worse, closing the road for a long period of time. So we have already undertaken actions like that. And as I mentioned, we're either replacing culverts that were burned badly by the fire or damaged by the fire, as well as installing inlet filter protections in the headworks. That way, when debris does come down, the debris will not clog the culvert pipes and cause a washout of the road. And that's along several different locations on Kashawa, ranging from milepost 1.5 all the way to the opposite end at Kashawa milepost 7.6 to milepost 10.0. I mentioned that we were also working with our partner agencies. One of the ones that's instrumental that we're working with is the USDA NRCS with Desi Ramirez and her staff on doing some assessments of those uphill properties, both giving some technical assistance, as well as seeing what kind of private property financial incentives the private property owners may be able to be eligible for, again, may be eligible for after an assessment, and help prevent any further secondary washouts of either the road or further damage to the private property. That is my brief summary of the Carmel Fire area. Moving on to the River Fire area, we understand there's concerns from constituents about the Toro Park area, which was badly burned by the River Fire, as well as the impacts to the county road, River Road, and some of the other county roads that obtain access off of River Road, like Pine Canyon Road. Again, those are regions that we are seeking the assistance of the USDA NRCS to assess the Toro Park property for impacts to critical infrastructure or the land itself, as well as some other proactive measures we can be taking along that county property. Along River Road itself, there are some areas that the work report has identified as being value at risk. And so we're taking a second look at that and seeing what other emergency protective measures we may place around there. And looking into the near-term future, we are awaiting the final BAER bear report that is applicable to the Dolan Fire region for access off of Nacimiento-Ferguson Road, a forest highway that the county maintains, but is for all intents and purposes a road of the U.S. Forestry Service. We're waiting for that final bear report so that we can also talk with the partner agencies about both permanent repairs that can be done and other emergency protective measures. We're also working with Caltrans, recognizing that Caltrans has a slide-prone area out there off of State Route 1, and we all would certainly not want to have that part of State Route 1 closed off for a long period of time to our motoring public. So that's a broad overview of some of the things that the county is doing, both on its roads, as well as the county property like Toro Park. And with that, I will hand it back to you, Supervisor Adams.
Thank you so much, Randy. And I know now we are looking forward to hearing from Yanni Schwartz to give us a brief summary of what's next on the Dolan Fire and the bear report, the burn area emergency response report.
Hi. First of all, I'm sorry I was late. I was told that this meeting starts at 6. And I literally just arrived home after being away from home for 6 weeks at about 20 minutes ago. So
you look happy.
I'm happy to be home and I'm tired. We gave our final presentation today at the Monterey County OES. We still have to finish our little bear package, but most of the specialist reports, the hydrologists, soil scientists, geologists, and so on are mostly done. We have most of our products, all the different maps and models that we run are mostly done. And as I promised to Pat Moore at OES, by Friday, by the end of this week, we will provide all this data to OES, and they will be the point of distribution of all our findings, maps, GIS layers, and so on. I am not sure if you're interested to hear a little bit about the BEAR program, because I know that people tend to get confused a little bit between the BEAR program, the suppression rehab program, the WORT, which is kind of similar to whatever we do, but we do it on the same kind of assessment on on federal land. So is there anything specific? I'm kind of really dropping into it.
Okay. Well, I know that you gave a very thorough report this morning, and I think you were also gave a quick update on the media presentation today at noon. And I think generally people just wanted to have an idea of what's next for the Dolan fire regarding the burn area emergency response. I know that, let's go ahead.
Okay, so I will say just a few words about the process that the BEAR team goes as we go through this BEAR assessment. The BEAR team consists of a group of scientists. We are the geologists, hydrologists, soil scientists, and the GIS folks. That what we do is we go out to the field, to the burn landscape, assess the burn landscape. We identify values at risk, mostly focusing on values at risk on federal lands, but we also take notes of values at risk that are off federal land, off Forest Service lands. And then each discipline writes their own report with recommendations of treatment that should take place before the upcoming storms. Through this process, we finalize a soil burn severity. We start with a satellite image. We take all kinds of points on the ground. It's a very rapid assessment, but we turn this satellite image into a final soil burn severity map. We send this soil burn severity to to our partners in the USGS. They are the ones that run the debris flow model. We get from them a whole bunch of products, which include the probability of a debris flow initiation in every basin, the volume predicted for every basin, and combined hazard, which is kind of putting those two together. We run our own model, the hydrology model, predicting the differences in flow pre-fire and post-fire flows. We run our soil models, predicting soil erosion after the fire. And then again, we come with our recommendations.
And when will we get that final report?
Excuse me?
When will we have the final report?
So that's what I was saying. I was promising Pat and Kelsey from OES that by Friday, I will submit the whole package to them, and they will be the point of distribution to everybody. I've been working very closely. We have many partners, and we've been doing it for many, many years. We developed working relationships over the years through the Sobranes fire and previous fires. So I've been working very closely with folks from Caltrans and other local agencies. But and I'm happy to share my information and be a point of a discussion to interpretate this data, but the distribution of the data will go through OES.
Yeah, so when we receive it, we'll send out a press release and a message on the Nextel channel. So if you would like to receive a link via text message to your phone when the BEAR report is released, you can text MC Fires 2020 to 888-777, or you can check on this website again on Friday by close of business is the hope that we receive the report.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Yanni, for your participation with us this evening. And now we'll let you go so you can get back to your wonderful family reunion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now we'll go to the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service and see if we can speak with Desi Ramirez and provide us a bit of an overview about who is eligible to apply, particularly for the Water Emergency Protection Programs.
Sure, definitely. Thank you, Supervisor. Hi, I'm Desi Ramirez. I'm an engineer with the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service here in Salinas. And anybody is eligible to apply. It's not even an application, just request that we come out and view your property for any type of erosion or other watershed risk concerns you have after the fire. We're a federal agency with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, but we focus on private lands. And so we provide free and confidential technical assistance. So if you need to ask us any questions, just get in touch with me and we'll schedule an appointment. And from that assessment, my team and I will be able to determine if you have any structures, homes, any other critical structure on your property that might be at risk during a debris flow this winter. And that is where, excuse me, that's where our emergency watershed protection program would come into play. So our team will make a determination after visiting properties whether or not that is appropriate. And we describe to you what we have in mind for the protection measures and see if you're interested in it. And that's when we would bring that forward to the county, who is our local sponsor. So that is the only reason we would bring your information forward to the county, is if you are interested or if there is a need for that on your property.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And perhaps you'll tell us what NRCS exactly stands for.
Sure, it's the Natural Resources Conservation Service.
Great.
And we're a federal agency that may not be as well known during emergency times because typically we work with farmers and ranchers on agricultural lands doing conservation projects. So if you have a farm or ranch, please also get in touch with us because there are additional programs through our sister agency, Farm Services Agency, to provide funding to replace any farming infrastructure that might have been lost, like fence for ranches or irrigation systems in vineyards, that type of thing.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate your help and your being with us and providing the service that you do to all of the residents of our area.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'm going to turn to other resources that are available for people, and Group 2 folks can go ahead and turn off their videos now. Thank you, and I'll go first. I'd like to introduce our final group of panelists who are going to turn on their videos, and we'll get some information about other services that are available for people throughout the community. And I'm going to start with Katie Castagna from United Way. And if you could please mute yourself if you are not part of the discussion team now. It sounds like somebody's got a little double dipping going here. At any rate, Katie, thank you for being with us. And I am hopeful that you can give us some information about other programs, but I've got a quick question to ask you as we just begin. 211 is a program that a lot of people have been talking about, such a great way to jump into so many other avenues of information, that calling 211 is something everyone can remember. If people wanted to get additional information about some of the presentations that have gone on this evening, if they just call 211, would they be able to get information about how to get to the NRDC and other groups like that?
Good evening, and thank you, Supervisor Adams. I think you just stole my thunder because no, because as you all can see, the county has done an amazing job with their website and communication and collecting of resources. But for the layperson, sometimes it's a little tricky to navigate, and we've received a lot of great contact also with the FEMA phone numbers and so forth. So all of these resources, we have been working very diligently to also load into our 211 information database. And so somebody that can dial 211 and ask for a particular resource, our call specialist can help them find that. And many of these resources, as Kelsey and others have pointed out, are so well placed on the county website, but we can also help direct people to those resources.
That's great. Thank you. Are there other resources that people need to know about that you might be able to tell us about?
So there are some more general resources. There is an organization called recovers.org that I want to make sure everybody knows about. And it's actually sort of a national platform that helps broker volunteers and donations and other services, both financial resources as well as human resources. And so we have a local chapter that's been very active, and that is, you can find that at montereyco.recovers.org. And so they have been very active with the wildfires, and we're lucky to have such a a local resource that provides that platform for brokering. And they really take on individual needs. People can post needs there, and they do sort of a case management, and that's volunteer driven, and they've done an excellent job. So that's recovers.org, and I want people to know about that. And then as you know, there's also been a lot of fundraising around fire relief, and I know that our community foundation has an excellent track record and system for raising and distributing funds for fire relief. And so I believe that they are still accepting applications from nonprofit organizations that might be able to assist in some way. So there is definitely financial information available for nonprofit organizations, and I would direct them to the Community Foundation for Monterey County website. And they also have some additional resources and information listed there as well. And then finally, I'd like to just say that United Way Monterey County, in addition to continuing to operate 211, and as an example, in the last 6 weeks, we fielded 470 phone calls specifically about the wildfires. And we're, of course, tracking these resources in now the recovery phase. But in addition to that, we have also had some generous donations, and we will be looking for ways that we can support the community, and that's yet to be determined. But I'm looking for great ideas, and so I appreciate being part of this. But thank you so much, and I'm happy to take any questions. And
Great. Thank you very much for being with us, Katie. Great
very
work.
happy to be here.
Thank you. And now I'll go to Michelle Averill from American Red Cross.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Supervisor Adams. We appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and learn with our partners and share what we are doing. We've been working alongside of our government and community partners in providing shelter, food, and recovery for residents that have been impacted by these fires. We've been in Northern California most recently, and then throughout our area with the LNU, SCU, and CZU fires. Right now, we are starting the recovery process in our local area. And the Red Cross, being a non-governmental organization, we do not, we will ask, folks for identification and that as they apply. But we are also going to be doing some outreach to make sure that members of our community feel safe in applying and knowing that us not being a governmental organization, that you can apply for services or for financial support and know that it's not going to be reported to the government. So in order to apply, you can go to redcross.org/apply, or you can call 1-800-RED-CROSS, which is 1-800-733-2767. And we're also offering what we call wraparound services. And with these wraparound services, we're providing mental health support. If somebody's needing feeding, we've been feeding the residents that have had to evacuate to hotels. So we've been offering feeding for all of those that have been evacuated there. And, just trying to support as best as we can. But we're here, and if there's anything that we can do to help, we are happy to be a part of this process and to help as our community starts to recover. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank
It's
you.
always good to have the Red Cross at hand, without doubt.
Thank
Now
you.
we have someone who is new to our group, and I'm very delighted that we have with us Marianne Schickentons, who is with the American Institute of Architects, the Monterey Bay chapter. You can unmute yourself. Let's see. We need to unmute Marianne.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for having us. I'm very happy to be here on behalf of the AIA Monterey Bay. And I do want to express just my condolences to, I assume there are homeowners listening, to all of you who lost your homes and all the memories that go with the homes. So we heard a lot about all these different agencies, but you will need a set of plans in order to be able to get a permit to rebuild your house, and all the information that you heard today will have to go on this set of plans. So many of you probably have not worked with an architect before, but I would like, as I'm here to reach out to you, that a design professional and architects help you put all that information together. And they know not only how to navigate the permitting systems, what the latest codes are that you have to adhere to. So you might have to do many things that weren't in your home, like fire sprinkling systems or other things that you weren't used to that are just required now because your new home will have to be up to code. But in addition to that, we can be advocates for you when it comes to the insurance companies. What we see right now, I'm already working with a couple of fire victims myself. What we see is that insurances want to settle claims very quickly, and that does give you quick cash. But what we see right now is that the estimates for cost of construction that insurances are operating under are way below what actual construction costs are. So it's really important for you that you have an advocate that gets you the right amount of money that you can actually rebuild your home. And those of you who are not insured or underinsured, please also reach out to us. We do have a roster of architects that are offering volunteer services. So we are trying for companies to, especially little larger architectural companies, to adopt somebody who might be underinsured or uninsured. That list is being updated, so please reach out and you can either email me, that is president@aiamontereybay.org, or our executive director, which is executivedirector@aiamontereybay.org. And that's probably the quickest way. You can also go on our website under aiamontereybay.org, .com, and in the tab find an architect. So there are all the architects listed. If you want to go directly to somebody and find someone, we will try to have that roster of volunteers updated on our website on a regular basis. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for your information. That's really helpful to a lot of people, and a perfect segue for us to go to Frida Escobar, from the Monterey County Resource Management Agency Permit Center.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Supervisor Adams, for having me. And first of all, I'd like to just let everyone know that, and apologize for the delay in the response back, getting back to everyone. I've got a slew of emails, but I will get to everyone. First of all, I just want to let folks know that the Resource Management Agency is actually setting up appointments for those that have been impacted by the fire to actually come in and speak to us at the permit counter to find out what is the next best step forward. We are setting up the appointments and are actually partnering with environmental health. The topic, the hot topic, has been the debris cleanup and what to do next, with regards to phase 1, phase 2. So having the FAQ questions that came out, as well as having environmental health representatives there with the permit counter staff to answer those questions collectively with the applicants, it has been extremely well received. So I just want to encourage folks that even though we are not open to the public, we are making an exception and having those folks that have been impacted to come in. One of the information that I would like to get out to the folks is to please submit your 2020 disaster application. Even though you are not ready to submit plans, that is a mechanism that I have to track along. One, to ensure that when they do submit their plans that they receive the priority processing, as well as to be able to assist them navigate through the other regulatory departments with regards to permitting. So that's, my staff and I are on standby. But again, really the hot topic has been the debris cleanup, and so I'm happy we refer them over to the EOS website. We tweet out as much information and Facebook it and retweet it just to make sure that it's in a constant feed to make sure that folks have that information, and then we can go from there. So please reach out to me, and I will get to you, I promise. I am making my way down the list. My staff and I are logging every call that is coming in, and every application that is coming in to ensure that folks get the services that they need.
Thank you, Frida. And before we go back to Kelsey for the Virtual Local Assistance Center, we're going to go to Peter Quick, who we have had a little connectivity issue here. And Peter was going to speak to us quickly about where people can find out information about the potential storms and flooding.
Looks like I'm not able to share my video, which is fine, but can you hear me okay?
Barely.
Okay. Peter Quick here, hydrologist, Monterey County Water Resources Agency. I'm just going to talk briefly about our flood warning system. Are you able to hear me now okay?
Yes.
Yeah, good, okay. So, and this, each year, you know, around this time of the year, the agency, the Water Resources Agency, we become, among other things, a flood control agency. And that means that our reservoirs, Nacimiento and San Antonio, are operated to accommodate and detain flows that might otherwise cause flooding lower in the watershed. But more pertinent to this discussion, whenever significant storm events are forecast and occur, we have an alert storm monitoring and flood warning system, which is activated, and we monitor countywide hydrologic conditions through a network of dozens of rain and stream flow gauges. And I'm just quickly going to share screen here. Can you see that?
We see you're going to start. There we go.
Okay, and so this map shows the gauges within Monterey County, and it's not important to see what all the names are. It's just to show you that we have about 50 gauges that were kind of behind the scenes monitoring conditions in real time, rainfall and stream flow as well. And I just want to mention that there is now a publicly accessible component of this storm monitoring system, accessible through the web, and we can put that link in the chat section. And data from our network is also used by the California Nevada River Forecast Center, which forecasts river flows during flow events and helps us manage for flood control and informs prediction of localized flooding hazards that may lead to things like road closures. I just want to mention that the fires have had some impacts on our gauges, and so we're currently performing maintenance on our most critical alert gauges ahead of the coming storm season. And I included the Dolan fire here because this red dot here is one of our gauges that was damaged in the Dolan fire. And it really does have an impact on the Salinas watershed because it gives us information on rainfall in the Arroyo Seco. So the agency has obtained written emergency authorization from the Forest Service to access our most remote sites for maintenance, repair, and vegetation removal. And in fact, today, agency staff made helicopter flights to these critical remote sites. So we're planning, the other thing in terms of how it's going to affect our monitoring going forward, we are planning on adding gauges to our network this year to improve our coverage. We're also in communication with California Geologic Survey, which is seeking additional gauges in the river fire area to aid in debris flow predictive modeling. And so we know that the WERT team analysis has produced post-fire multipliers that help us estimate the expected watershed behavior for a given storm post-fire versus before the fire. The National Weather Service and CalGS are working on rain thresholds for warnings around the burn areas. And they're partly some of our data, the real-time data from our storm monitoring sites, will be used in determining if thresholds for notifications are met during storm events this winter. And we would then be feeding such information to the emergency managers like Emergency Operations Center staff. So I know that's a lot. I just, that's really what I had on the alert system. I also had one thing on sandbag distribution, if this is the appropriate time for that.
If it's a quick response, and then if you can tell us where people can find out about sandbags.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the chat section, but we purchase bags each year, and Public Works supplies stockpiles, and there's 18 locations throughout the county, and there's, I think, currently 4,000 unfilled bags at each of the 18 stations, which we'll be replenishing with more bags. We'll put more information in the chat section and a link to where those stations are.
Yeah, and also the location of sandbags and how to access them will be located on the post-fire winter storm preparedness tab on the recovery webpage.
Thank you, Peter. I'm awfully glad that we got the connection worked out, because this was very helpful and important information. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And with that, we will turn back to Kelsey Scanlon for the virtual local assistance center information.
All right, so I just mentioned sandbags. So you can see it's this post-fire winter storm preparedness tab that you'll be able to see where the sandbags are located once we update everything. Local assistance center, it is virtual now. And we update this pretty regularly. This is also, if you can't get a hold of me for whatever reason, and you can't get a hold of EPA or the Environmental Health Bureau or RMA, and you want the county to be aware of more damage, you can come here and submit a damage assessment to the county. And so this is a self-damage assessment. It's not required, but encouraged. It provides you opportunity for resources, FEMA resources, deadlines. It has Monterey County Recovers on here. Basically everything you need to know or would get at a physical local assistance center can be found on this webpage. And this is actively maintained by our office.
So why don't you tell us what it is one more time?
The Virtual Local Assistance Center.
Through the Monterey County Office of Emergency Services.
Yep, so you just come to the recovery webpage, scroll down, and you click on the Assistance Center.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to report that we have been able to have most of the questions and answers handled throughout the presentation this evening, because I have not done a very good job of managing time, and it's almost time for us to end. But before we do, and before I even offer a lot of thanks to all of the people who have made this possible, I just really want to reach out to the many residents who I know are listening, and to tell you that there are services available for you. I know you probably feel overwhelmed at this point, and I can certainly understand that. I just hope that you are able to get the immediate help that you need, because it's out there, and people are so conscious of trying to get you back on your feet again and start to do whatever it is that you need to get your life back before this absolute tragedy. So I really want to ask all of the participants to turn their videos on, and I am not sure that we have any questions left. I think we've been able to handle them all the way around. I do want to remind the attendees that are participating via Zoom that they can type in any questions into the Q&A box. Attendees who are joining via Facebook can type their questions on comments on Facebook, and staff will add them to the Q&A list. Participants joining via telephone can press *9 still to raise their hands to ask questions. And if people who would like to have questions answered that they are not going to be able to have heard, they can contact our office and we'll be able to get those back to you. I just appreciate all of the people who have participated tonight. You've really made a big difference in a lot of people's lives, from the not-for-profit groups to the federal groups to the state groups and to the local government groups. You're here to help everyone, and I value that so much, as I know all of the people who've been able to participate too. So with that, I will see whether or not there are any other questions. There is one hand up, and that hand is Jackie Seymour. If we could allow Jackie to ask the question. And I'm not seeing anybody. There is a hand up here. Can you unmute Jackie Seymour so she has the opportunity? Or you'll have to unmute yourself, Jackie.
I'm sorry, I didn't have a question. That must have gotten bumped accidentally.
Okay, well, it looks like maybe you've had it answered already then. Thank you. Well, thank you so much. With that, I just thank you, everyone. I really want to give a special shout out of thanks to my team, Yuri Anderson and Sarah Hargrave, who have done just so much, as well as Susan Moore on our team. You've all made this possible, and the good relationships that we have throughout the community are in no small part to them that have brought all of you together to help everybody. So I thank you all. And with that, we will say goodbye. And I think I am even 3 minutes early, so there's never any problem with that. Thank you all so much for being with us.